Syrian ambassador to China and previously to the US, Imad Mustafa, joins us now live on the programme. You're very welcome as well. Just on your current placement, China says that it respects Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government and believes that the Syrian population should decide its own fate. Then again, in the US, we've seen a U-turn from Donald Trump, haven't we, who went from Assad can stay to Assad must go. And it just took a number of days. Your thoughts on that U-turn?
Well, we cannot concern ourselves in Syria with what a U.S. president would say regarding the Syrian government and the Syrian president. They have been waltzing around these ideas for the past 6 years, whether it was the Obama administration or now the Trump administration coming and going and saying this and that. What we are really concerned about is the existential struggle that Syria is facing. We are fighting against extreme radical terrorist groups. The future of Syria is at stake. The Syrian people will decide the political future of Syria and of the outcome of this conflict. And we cannot become hostages to the whims and caprices of the President of the United States of America, regardless of what he used to say before and what he is saying right now.
Well, on that point, how do you see the assault? Do you see it most likely as a one-off attack, or that's something that is going to happen more steadily in your country? That has to be a major worry for Syria.
Well, here is the problem with this assault. It is a double-tiered problem. On the one hand, the United States of America is colluding with al-Nusra Front and with ISIL in attacking and trying to weaken the Syrian armed forces while they are engaged in a ferocious battle against terrorist groups on the Syrian ground. This tells you a lot about the so-called Trump's priority to fight terrorism. But on the other hand, here is a more sinister problem. What the United States has done today is the following. It has told the terrorist groups, and particularly the Nusra Front, whenever you want us to strike again against the Syrian armed forces, you just need to stage yet another chemical attack, kill more and more civilians, innocent women and children, and we will be very happy to provide to you whatever you desire. We will attack more and more of the Syrian government and armed forces positions. This is a very vicious cycle. This is exactly what Mr. Trump has done today. He has told the terrorist groups, go ahead with your scenarios of staging chemical attacks. Every time you do it, we are there to help you further inflict damage and suffering on the Syrian people.
Just to get your thoughts on another aspect to this, NATO's chief claimed that Damascus bears full responsibility for the US attack on the Syrian base. So essentially, the country was attacked and it's that country's fault. Did you expect such a statement from NATO?
Look, the massive campaign of lies, disinformation, distortion of what's going on in Syria has been going on for at least 6 years. We have become immune to being affected by what they say. Mrs. Merkel knows very, very well that if there was even a shred of evidence that the Syrian government was behind this horrible attack on civilians, then they would have called for an investigation. The reason they recklessly rushed into an attack on Syria was because they really didn't want to bother with the facts. They didn't really want to know really what has happened. They just wanted to do what they want. And now what will happen? They are going to investigate the real culprit? Of course not. If it is proven that it was not the Syrian government who did this, because we didn't do it, and we know that we didn't do it, then what will they do? Sorry, we attacked a Syrian airbase foolishly and by mistake. This is a reckless cowboy mentality that is a reflection on the real values of the United States of America. Thank you very much, Mr. Trump, for this invaluable gift you have just provided to the terrorist groups in Syria.
Well, Russia's defense ministry earlier said that it believed that the U.S. administration had changed its views on Syria. We saw some evidence of that in the past number of weeks, not just from Donald Trump, but from other high-ranking officials. Well, that now seems to have gone a 180-degree turn. It's still looking for military conflict. I know you didn't really want to speak on that U-turn, but it is such a major issue today to your country waking up to such a situation.
Look, we in Syria are phlegmatic about the twists and turns of U.S. policies towards Syria. We know that you have all the fireworks, all the statements and counter-statements and give and take, but then you have the establishment, the military establishment and the political establishment that really rules America, regardless of who is the president now and who was the president then. And we really have no serious hopes on any significant changes in U.S. policies towards Syria or towards our region in general.
Well, Russia has also claimed that it's waiting for indisputable evidence that it was Bashar al-Assad who used chemical weapons this past week, or indeed ever before. Why didn't the US actually wait and see and get evidence and have more right to carry out an attack with UN involvement? Or are we never going to see this proof, and it made no difference whether the attack was carried out last night or in the future?
The attack was planned and carried on regardless of whether this chemical attack happened because of any acts of the Syrian government or not. Look, let me be as clear as possible. We have never used chemical weapons before. We did not use them in the past. We did not use them this time. We never have any intention to use them, even against the terrorist groups themselves. So forget about using them against civilians, innocent civilians. First. Second, we are not stupid. We understand that if we will use them, and we have never used them, then the United States and her allies will have the big historic opportunity to hit hard on Syria. So let's not be naive, and let us be serious about this. Even the terrorist groups understand this. The only reason they staged this terrorist attack, this chemical attack, was their understanding that the moment it will happen, the United States will take action against the Syrian government and Syrian military positions, which will give them a great service and will allow them to launch yet another campaign and another attack against our troops.
On what's been a particularly tragic week for your country, Imad Mustaf is the Syrian ambassador to China and the last ambassador to the United States of America. We appreciate your time and coming on the programme.